Have you ever wondered how to make paint stick to a powder coated surface? That's what I'm going to show you in this video, and if you stay tuned until the end, I'll show you a bonus pro masking tip when you're masking off a tumbler. I have a lot of tumblers to paint over the next several weeks, and tumblers come in different quality levels, different sizes, and different finish options. I really like the Beast tumblers. The powder coat finish is extremely smooth, it's very durable. Obviously there are other options out there on the market. One of the other reasons that I really like the Beast tumbler is because the bottom is also powder coated. So really the only thing you have to mask off is that stainless steel finish right at the very top. With a tumbler like this, the finish is stainless steel on the bottom, so you have two areas that you need to mask off. And the finish, the texture on this powder coat is it's a flat finish compared to the gloss finish on the Beast. But this is also a little bit, it has more texture in the finish. I prefer this really smooth surface, and it makes prepping the surface a little bit easier because there's very little to mask off. These tumblers have really good reviews. The only thing that I don't like is the logo that is in the bottom of their tumblers. Obviously the logo was masked off with some heat resistant tape before the powder coating process because that's still a stainless steel finish. And if you can hear my thumbnail going over the top of that logo, obviously it's a pretty thick powder coat finish. It's a quality finish. However, if you were to just paint over this exactly as it is, you're still going to wind up seeing that logo in the end. So if you were doing something like a candy wash over the top of it where you still wanted it to be visible, that would be fine. But if you're just going to spray a solid uniform coat before you start your artwork, I don't necessarily want to see that, so I want to get rid of it. The first step we need to do though is to mask off that stainless steel lip around the top. For that, I use FBS gold tape. This is the 1/2 inch, and the goal is to kind of mask this as close to that powder coated edge as I can possibly get. I like to keep just a sliver of the stainless steel visible so that I don't inadvertently cover some of the powder coat that will not get prepped during this process. So take your time, and I'll usually wrap around it twice just to protect this finish from sand scratches once we start the prepping process. That looks pretty good. Around one more time. And we're good to start. Before you begin prepping the surface of your tumbler for paint, it's a very good idea to make sure it's clean. I have no idea how many hands have actually touched this during the manufacturing process or what other chemicals and agents have been introduced to this tumbler while it was being manufactured and shipped to me. If you start just scuffing this surface now, there's a good chance if there are contaminants on the surface that you're going to push those contaminants further into the powder coat, which could cause delamination and other paint issues later. So I want to make sure it's good and clean. I like to use both a water-based cleaner and a solvent-based cleaner. For the water-based, I use Sprayway glass cleaner, and I just spray a little bit of it onto a blue shop towel, and I start wiping the surface down. And then take a clean, dry blue shop towel. Make sure I don't have any other residue on the surface. And then just for good measure, I'm also going to use a solvent-based degreaser. I use House of Color KC10, which I have some in this small container, and the process is the same. I'm going to use a new clean Blue Shop towel, put a little bit of the wax and grease remover onto the towel, and then just wipe it down. Again, I'll take a dry, clean Blue Shop towel and make sure that this is all dry. And now we are ready to begin prepping the surface for paint. So the key when you're prepping the surface for paint is you don't want to see anything shiny. This is a very glossy powder coat. It's a really nice smooth finish, as I mentioned earlier. We got to get rid of all of that gloss. If you want to get rid of the logo, that's what I start with. You can do that by hand with, I use 320 grit sandpaper, and just lightly start sanding the surface. Until you can no longer feel that. And you're going to sand through the powder coat, obviously, because that is a pretty big tape line there. So it takes a little bit longer when you're doing it by hand, but it is an option. I prefer to use a DA sander. Again, same thing. I'm using 320 grit on the DA. And I'll just start sanding it until that logo is gone. See if I can still feel it, and I cannot. So we're good there. Blow that off. Now some of you may be wondering if paint will still stick to that stainless steel surface. It will, because it's been prepped. It's got a 320 grit scratch in it. I like to use the 320 grit to get rid of the logo before I start working on the rest of it, because the rest of it I use just a 3M Scotch-Brite red pad. So starting, I like to start at the lip that we've masked off, and I want to make sure I get that lip scuffed really good. I'm applying quite a bit of pressure while I'm doing this. Again, you don't want anything shiny left on the surface. You want it to all be a very dull white, or whatever color powder coat you're working with. You can get these tumblers in multiple different colors. I'm just working that tape edge. That's why I use 2 layers of that FBS gold tape in the beginning, just so that I don't rub through the tape. You can check your work. Again, just making sure it's all dull, nothing shiny. Same thing in this area where it necks down. It's a little bit easier to stick it on a bench. You can see I've got a towel laid on my bench right now so that I don't scratch it with the hardwood surface underneath. But it's easier to get that neck down spot when it's actually laying down on a surface where you can put the pressure on it. A little more pressure just makes it go a little bit faster. This is a very thick powder coat. As I mentioned before, you're not going to work all the way through this powder coated surface in just a few minutes. And then I'll work my way around the upper portion in between the neck down and the masked off spot. Again, just making sure I get all of this powder coat covered. We're basically putting a tooth into the surface on a microscopic level. And that tooth will allow your paint to stick. Once the top is finished, we can go down here to the bottom half. Same thing, this bottom half has this groove. So I like to fold my Scotch-Brite over and try to get into that groove as best as I can to make sure I get a good scuff inside there. Having that logo on there actually makes it pretty easy to know when you've gone all the way around too. Same thing, I like to work the edges. So I've flattened the Scotch-Brite pad back out. I like to work those edges around that little groove just to make sure I've got all of that scuffed. Make sure we get all the way around this bottom half. Hold it up to the light, make sure everything looks flat and dull if you need to. Around the edge, give it a good scuff. And this particular brand has some other lettering on the bottom side of that. I don't worry about sanding that off, but you do want to scuff this portion of the cup as well. You can hear the Scotch-Brite going over all of that lettering on the bottom side of the cup. Again, I'll look at it in the light, make sure everything is dull, and that looks pretty good. So I can blow this off. My air hose fell down. Blow off just the sanding dust. I just put a mark in it at the end of my air blower. That's okay. My air hose fell again. So the next portion of this is to make sure it's good and clean once again, because now we've been working on the surface. I've been touching it So I'll do the same thing we did before, and I'm going to use the same paper towels that I used before, just because I already have them out here. So with the water-based cleaner, which is just the Sprayway glass cleaner, get it wiped away, and then with the dry shop towel, you can use microfiber towels for this too. And then I'll move to the solvent-based degreaser, which is, I use House of Color KC10. Same process. I'll work a little bit harder on that spot that I just left the mark from my air nozzle. Just going around it. And then I'll take a clean, dry paper towel and dry it off. And this surface is very dull. It looks good. This is ready for paint. So on to that bonus tip that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the tape that I already have around this edge. Why would I do that? Well, we've been sanding. There's sanding debris on this tape, which could wind up blowing off and into your paint at some point. So I'm going to remask this before I actually spray. Obviously, before you begin painting, you're going to want to mask off the inside of the cup, because this is where people's drinking liquids go into the container. One of the easiest ways to do that is with one of these little FBS maskers. You can do this any number of ways. This is just the easy way to do it. These are handy little things to have, but you can use just a sheet of paper and some masking tape, however you want to do it. But I take one of these and I wrap it around about the top half or the top third of that stainless steel surface. So you can see I'm not going all the way to the edge of the powder coat. And there's a specific reason why I do it this way. So once you've gone all the way around, make sure that's burnished down good. And then I'll just tuck this in to the inside of the cup, which masks all of that off. Now, why do I leave this portion unmasked on the cup? It's very simple. It's for the same reason that we just removed the masking tape a minute ago. During the painting process, you may need to remask this several times, especially if you're using multiple coats of paint, or you may want to remask it. I would recommend you remask it before the final clear coat. You'll get a cleaner, better edge if you do. So if I run another strip of this FBS gold over the top of what we just masked off, again, being very careful to get right up on that powder coated edge, I'm still leaving just a sliver of that stainless steel visible, just so that I don't wind up inadvertently masking over the white and having a white spot later if this tumbler is not going to be white. And now it's ready to paint. Obviously, I would clean this again because I've been handling it, touching it with my bare hands. So we can put a sealer over this, and I recommend using a sealer because you do have the bare stainless steel down here in this area where we took the logo out. If you're using a tumbler that's already just a solid color, there's no need to put a sealer over it. I still like to use a sealer with the Createx line of products because the sealer provides really good adhesion. It's really good adhesion for your base layer. But once I do all of my artwork and I'm ready for clear coat, or if I've done several coats over this for the background and I need to remask this, the beauty is I can peel this mask off. The inside of the cup is still masked off. I haven't damaged any of that at all. So it's very easy just to mask off that line again versus having to remask the inside of the cup and the lip. So there's a pro tip for you. So I hope all of that made sense. I hope you got something out of this. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, and share. My name is Trevor with Wicked Art Studio. I will see you all next time.